the beginning of our entire real estate financial journey. Like, I feel like often you have one partner that like reads all the books, listens to the podcast, drinks the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and then the other partner is like, what is happening? So it was kind of that pivotal moment of, do we kind of get on the same page or do we not?
That's what early really is. You guys think 8 o'clock is early? What the freak?
No. I think 8 o'clock. Well, no. I mean, I'm up at like 7:30, but Josh is up at like 4:30 every day. So just different
I'm like, how do you get anything done when you're like, if you get up at 7, everybody else is up at 7. They're calling you, texting you, etc.
Yep.
So what are your guys' W-2 jobs, by the way?
So I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So I was a school social worker for many years. I'm actually leaving it after we have the baby. And then Josh is a job coach for workers with disabilities. So we both we met in college, like low paying human services jobs, a lot of reward, but a lot of burnout. So yeah, I feel like getting started.
What made you guys think to jump into that? Was that your parents, your social circle that you're hanging out with told you that was a good idea?
No, and
childhood trauma,
100%. So, not sure like how deep you want to go, but like both of us grew up in like substance abuse families. I grew up just like in poverty, foster care and stuff like that. And over the course of my childhood and then like young adulthood, I had a lot of people reach into my life and kind of take me under their wing as like mentors. And I saw the power of, it takes a village to raise a child kind of thing. So I had a lot of people helping me out. And so then I kind of cultivated that pay it forward mindset. So then when I went into, what do I want to do as an adult? It was, well, how can I find a career that allows me to help others in a meaningful way? Back then I wasn't really like thinking about
neither of us were aware of how our past had impacted our career choice, but I think it for sure did. Yeah.
And we were thinking about this exact conversation. I'm like, you guys think you made a decision to choose your job. You did not choose your job. Your environment and what happened to you as a child chose your job for you.
Oh my God. The ripple effects echo, and and we didn't go into those careers, and in those careers, especially when you're in school, they kind of like indoctrinate you like money is bad. Don't do this because you want to try to make money. Basically just like plan on being poor. It's not about making money. It's about, selfless help. And I was like, absolutely. That totally makes sense. Like, who cares about money? And then she finished her master's and we had like $110,000 of student loan debt.
And it's like, wow, we're not making any money and we have a ton of debt and we're living like less than paycheck to paycheck. And now I think I care a little more about money than what I thought I did and my professors told me I should.
So it was like reconciling, like, I don't want to go to the other end of the spectrum. Like, all right, well, like there's probably some space in between. And so then just through our careers, it was kind of going through the opportunity ladder of like, what are meaningful ways that we can still help people, or like what I think you put it, like find the bunnies kind of thing, but also do it in a way where we feel like financially it's like aligned with what we're trying to do. And that's just then the iteration really like the last like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the business model now for you guys as you're making the departure away from the W-2 world?
Yeah, so I mean, we started in 2020. Ali had the idea of like, we're going to share our story to financial independence on social media. And I was like, that's dumb. Like, why would we ever do that? We're not content creators, et cetera, et cetera. But enough people like what you were describing were like reaching out, just like word of mouth stuff. And I said, we don't know everything, but like, I think we know enough to help people like 2-3 steps behind us. So we started making videos and posting about like real estate and personal finance and stuff like that.
I think for me, like my biggest thing was when we first started this, like we were not on the same page. Josh was really into it and I thought that he had lost his mind. So it took a lot for us to get aligned, and he would share podcasts with me. And the ones that resonated most was when I was listening to couples and whatnot, but often it was the couple that had already achieved financial independence. So it was aspirational, but it wasn't necessarily relatable for where we were in our journey because we were so far removed from that. So I wanted to share that narrative of like kind of still grinding and working towards it.
I got fired 5 years ago. We had no money. a lot of debt. I was driving Uber, listening to like Bigger Pockets podcast and stuff. And I was like, I don't know actually how we're going to like be on a podcast one day, but like, I'm just going to keep driving and I'm just going to keep analyzing fake deals. I've analyzed like 1,000 fake deals that don't actually exist, but I'm like just constantly running the numbers so that eventually, like when Redfin or LoopNet or whatever, something actually happens, I was like, oh, cool. Like I've seen this 1,000 times in my mind.
Right.
And so fast forward, we started social media and we bought our first couple deals off market, creative finance and stuff. And then I would say probably like early 2021, I think maybe we had 4,000, 5,000 followers, which we just thought like our moms would follow us, you know? I think, I forget who it was. Someone reached out and they're like, you know, with your guys' following, like you guys could like, you know, make an income. And we're like, how do people make money using like that's such
everything
foreign.
We've done? And I think, you know, as is the case for many people, but whether it was social media or real estate, like we did not have a network or community or anyone like, oh, this is how you do it. So I feel like we stumbled a lot in the beginning because it was kind of just like figuring it out, but it became to the point where it was like really terrifying to imagine being a social worker for the next 30 years and working in that job. So like the reality of staying on the track that I was on was so much scarier than the reality of like embarrassing myself and making mistakes and taking the risk. And we kind of just like jumped all into all of it.
Oh, I know. My mom works with special needs kids, and I'm like, I don't care how much impact you have. What's happening? Like I watch my mom. The parents of these kids are so worn out, justifiably, that they are like just push their kids off on the school system, and the school system does not pay these people properly to handle the special needs. And what happens is I watch, and you'll justify this, guys. Look, I'm just call it as it is. I'm 40 years old. I can't live life pretending that everything's all about impact. Like you got to have a smile on your face in your own daily life. Forget about everybody else all the time. I watch my mom and she comes home. She's like, yeah, but I'm making an impact. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're making a change in those 10 people's lives. But if you actually were able to make more money, then you could make a larger impact. Impact does not come without income. You cannot make a large enough impact in your individual life by just helping 5 to 10 kids that when they go back home, the parents still don't manage them properly. Like if you want to really make an impact, you got to go make a lot of money and go create your own system. Go create your own ecosystem and your own building where people can come into.
Especially as like a learner in conventional education, you're kind of programmed to think one way. I'm going to get my W-2 job. And for me, it was like my state job with my pension and benefits. And this is the life. And then it's realizing I'm in that life and we're going through fertility treatments and I'm getting punched in the stomach every day. And I'm like a shell of who I am physically and mentally. And I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I want. And it took
it's interesting that nobody sits down with you. Like when you were going through your education and saying, hey, I'm getting a master's degree. I'm going to go spend 4 to 6 years getting a master's degree to make $3,000 a month. But what they keep saying to you is this ambiguous set of words like benefits. And benefits are like $1,000 a month. Like, oh, but they're paying for my insurance and my paid time off. It's like, that's maybe on the high end, $1,000 a month for a typical married couple. Couldn't you just make $1,000 a month and pay for your own benefits out of your own pocket rather than be held down by the system? Nobody told you any of this stuff when you were going through school, right?
Yeah, 100%.
It's funny that the journey is a lot less about real estate. The journey becomes way more about mindset.
Oh, totally. Everything. That's the driver. And that's where it gets interesting. So like our background is like human behavior and psychology. And a lot of times, whether it's like real estate or personal finance, I think that's where people get it wrong. They're so transfixed on like, how do I buy deals or how do I make more money? When really it's like you picture like the iceberg analogy. That's just a lagging measure. That's like the outcome. The 80 to 90 is the mindset and habits behind it. And so what we found was like we had cultivated kind of these, you know, almost like these like superpowers or like lens through which we found the world, but we were applying them to call it like a level like 1.5 to 2 opportunity, where I was like, all right, we're very much capped in terms of income and impact we can have. And like, it definitely doesn't align with like the lifestyle that we want. So, but it's like very valuable. So how can we actually parlay this like mindset and lens through we see the world into maybe like a level 5 or a level 6 opportunity? And through real estate in the beginning, like brick and mortar real estate, that was, we started to learn like we're making money not at a job, which now feels very common. But 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, well, in order to make money, like
It
you
was
have
the craziest thing, yeah.
right, like
Input,
you have
output.
and I remember like that first rent check, like January 1st, 2029 or 2019, like the guy gave us a check and I was like, this is weird. Like you just gave us money, but we did like this. It was really hard to fathom back then.
Yeah.
But then it
Yeah,
set the
I
stage for
remember
yeah.
creating content when I first got my first rent check. I remember that I was like, this is the greatest content of all time, showing people I received. My first one wasn't a check. It was a wad of cash.
Wow.
And I was like, this really happens. Like, it's really weird. It's like somebody was teaching me to walk my whole life and walk uphill both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then someday somebody's like, why aren't you riding a bike? Like you're walking 5 miles one way. I'm like, I don't know what that feels like. And then all of a sudden it's like riding a bike downhill both ways. And you're like, this seems weird. Why didn't anybody ever tell me about this?
Yeah.
Right.
You guys strike me as a couple that probably really love Dave Ramsey.
For a hot minute, Dave, hold on, I'm going to start over. For like a minute, Josh was very invested in Dave Ramsey. And I would say we got fundamentals from Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
You had consumed the content and then shared it with me. And then I'd say like 3 months into it, there was still zero buy-in on my end. And I was like, this is not sustainable. This is not going to work. I feel like that was the beginning of our entire real estate financial journey. Like, I feel like often you have one partner that like reads all the books, listen to the podcast, drinks the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and then the other partner is like, what is happening? So it was kind of that pivotal moment of, do we kind of get on the same page or do we not? And the outcomes would have obviously been very different, but Dave Ramsey was not a sustainable model for us.
And we tried like the rice and beans life like for like 3 or 4 months, and then because really like we had a pain point, we were over 100,000 plus in debt and like spending all of our money. So I like went to Google and I was like, well, how do you not have debt? And of course, back then it was like, oh, all debt is bad. So I was like, oh, well, this guy, Dave, he seems to know some stuff. Okay, this is what you do. Okay, great. So we started doing it, and like all the little things that were helping us get through the tough stuff, like whether it's like a cup of coffee or like a date night, I was like, this is bad. We can't do that. Didn't last very long, especially like 7 months before we were getting married. We were like, this is not sustainable. And then, so then I found like content on social media and especially Bigger Pockets where people were like, all debt, like get as much debt as you possibly can and don't worry about like finances and stuff like that and you'll figure it out. And I was like, you know, I probably bet there's like a space in between there that works for us. And like, not all debt is created equal, so on and so forth. And then that's kind of where we found kind of like a path of kind of marrying those two worlds a little bit. And then that kind of helped us get started.
Who saw the light? Like who saw this? Was this you, Josh? Who was it that saw the light and was like, we got to go this route instead of the Dave Ramsey route?
Well, I was never on board with Dave Ramsey, but I wasn't necessarily on board with Bigger Pockets or house hacking or anything we did after that. But I think it had caused so much friction in our relationship and we were both so miserable. I think when we were following that, it was like such a scarcity mindset of like, bring everything in a not an intentional way, just do it all, and our life was so miserable and it got so small.
Miserable in the sense that like guys would come home, you'd have no money to go on dates, and your beautiful wife, she wants to buy a nice dress and she's got to go to Ross and some stupid frugal stuff. It's like, man, is my wife really worth only a $10 dress?
We compare it like paying off your debt with like a spoon or a shovel, or reducing your expenses with a spoon versus a shovel. And with Dave Ramsey, it was like, cut out the Netflix, cut out the coffee, cut out the date night. But like, those are things that made our life enjoyable. Whereas once we discovered real estate investing and house hacking, it was like, oh, we can get rid of an entire mortgage payment. We can get rid of an entire car payment. And that's a lot less emotional than the daily, like hundreds of decisions we made to deprive ourselves. And we don't super value cars, so we didn't really care to get rid of the car payment. And the property we ended up buying, it was a duplex, a house hack. It was the nicest place we'd ever lived. It was lovely. And someone was paying the majority of our housing costs. So it was kind of like working smarter and not harder. And that helped us have a way more abundant mindset going into all of it. And I think that helped us get on the same page and have buy-in, because it was kind of the first time where it was like, this is sustainable. Our life doesn't suck. Like, we can do this, and we can do it as a team, you know?
Yeah. How many fights were you guys having about all this stuff and contention and stuff like that? I mean, because every couple goes through that. What was that like?
It was really hard. It was very, very hard on our relationship. It was before we got married. Like, I'm going to paint the picture. Like, I was in grad school. We were broke. Josh was supporting us. And Josh had gotten laid off the year of our wedding. And then he totaled his car 2 months later. Yep. And it was like that, our life is crumbling around moment. And we had a conversation and we sat down and we talked about, like, what do we value most? Like, what do we want? Because we were struggling financially, like we weren't aligned. And for Josh, it was like, number one is career. And for me, I was like, number one is the time with the people that I love and care about. And that even caused a rub because we weren't on the same page values. If we both said career, that's great. We can both value that and work towards that, but it wasn't aligned. But I think after you got laid off, it was kind of that mindset shift of, you didn't have the same motivation to build someone else's dream when so quickly it was like, boom, gone, and pack up your shit in a black garbage bag and we'll never hear from you again. So I feel like that was really like a pivotal moment for us.
Oh, it was crucial. And I honestly, like, at that point, we've been together maybe 5 years. Me getting fired, all of a sudden I had unlimited time, and we had one car. So I was driving Allie to school and picking her up, or driving her to work, I should say. And so now we had more time probably than ever to discuss our values.
And I think, like, we were never having money conversations. Like, I think when you're younger and you meet someone, it's like, am I attracted to you? Do I have fun with you? All of those things. But you don't realize, like, the person that you pick is your business partner. When you hook your life up with someone in that way, the ripple effect and impact is so profound. So we started having money conversations right before our wedding. It caused so much friction, so much challenge. And yeah, we were fighting a lot. It was just, it's really hard when you're not aligned in that way.
So let's say I'm a married couple going through something similar, right? I see this all the time. You guys see it all the time. 2 questions for this. What is a piece of advice for them? And then also, is there something you guys can do to help married couples that are going through something like this?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for me, like, my biggest error we talk a lot about is, like, learn how to speak your partner's money language. And I was literally obsessed with podcasts and books, and I was doing all the things and living in Bigger Pockets forums, blah, blah, blah. When I was like, perfect, like, we're going to house hack and gain financial freedom. I came to Allie with, like, Excel sheets. And I came to Allie with,
and the
like,
cash on cash return.
Cash on cash return and formulas, and here's this YouTube video, blah, blah, blah. But I was, like, way missing the fact that, like, how I was conveying and communicating goals and stuff like that was not aligned with Allie's money language. And so for her, as she described earlier, it was, like, not about the numbers and the Excel sheets, but more so, like, what are the things that you value most? And if we do these things, they're like a bridge to us having more time freedom to, like, invest into those people and places and travel and time together. So I was like the mad scientist. Like, I had to go back to the drawing board, and I was like, how do I convey these things, but in alignment with how she needs to hear them? And that was just, like, working that muscle of getting better. So I would say first is, like, figuring out how your partner likes to communicate or likes to hear things. That in and of itself is just, like, a good life lesson, especially if you're, like, looking for a long-term relationship. And then, like, the specific thing that we would help, and, like, we have content around it, is really, like, how to have those conversations and kind of make it fun. Because again, like, we went from, like, we can't have date nights because we follow Dave Ramsey. But I'm like, well, after a long day, sometimes like it's easier to have these fun conversations or talk about money. But like, let's go out to a dinner. Let's go out to a restaurant. Let's take a walk. So it's like figuring out the conversations and how to communicate, but then also like what are some creative ways to like have like date nights around money and goals and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would
That's
say
really good advice. Like legit, that's great advice. I think most men are blunt instruments and they're just like, make more money, make more money. I wanted cash on cash return, make more money. And then women are like, I don't know what any of that means. But what
Right.
you're saying is for your specific relationship, it would be more like, hey, we need to look at these things so that we can make money so that we can go travel. We can buy a nicer house. We can, plan for a baby and plan for being able to actually spend time with our baby rather than give our baby up for, daycare on a daily basis that we can't even afford at this point. Right. So it's like changing the vernacular, changing the terminologies and changing essentially what you're saying to your partner so that they come into your world. Because I watch so many men come to me and say, how did you get your wife on board with your vision?
Yeah.
And mine wasn't that intelligent. Mine was like, go provide results, shut up, stop talking about it, go do the work, bring home money, and then go, see all this weird stuff I've been investing in? I just made $12,000 and now I can buy you a nicer car. Right? That was my way. But speaking a different language and learning that language through exercising that muscle, you made it sound so simple, but it's really, you put in a lot of work. And the way you articulated that was really, really good. Ali, how if somebody's a married couple, how can you guys help them?
The best way to connect with us, we create content around couples getting on the same page, but then we also have a private group coaching community, and we definitely have way more stuff coming out geared towards couples, because I think so often, like, couples aren't super represented in this space to begin with, but oftentimes there is a partner involved. They may not just be invested or on the same page. And I think that when you think about this concept of like money arguments and finance is one of the leading causes of divorce in our country, and we have like an over 50% divorce rate, something's not adding up. We don't promote like financial literacy in our society. So then you have these people that are coming from different backgrounds, merging their lives together. And it's like, hey, I don't really see life the way you do. So I think having those conversations early and often, and it's not fun, it's not sexy, it's not like exciting, but it's necessary to like a sustainable future and building the life that you want, especially if you want more than like, I'm going to work my job and then retire. Like if you want to kind of live that exceptional life where you take risks and you take on new things and you do entrepreneur stuff and all of that, it's just definitely a different mindset.
What do you guys spend money on now that you were sacrificing years ago?
I would say for us, travel, although it's been limited the last couple of years, we travel a lot more now. We're in the Northeast and we're not cold weather people. So we actually love spending time down south in the cold months. And then I would say like a lot more date nights. I don't know if there's so much like material things per se that we're spending a lot more on. We still drive pretty basic cars. We have 2 Toyota Corollas. And we still live in a house hack, so our housing is pretty cheap. But I would say like instead of like things,
it's our time.
It's our time. Like Ali went from a full-time job down to a part-time job,
and now I'm leaving it completely.
In a couple months, she's leaving that. And so like we're investing not so much putting money into things, but we're actually just getting back more time. And then the more time that we're together, like our quality of life is going way up.
If you could jump in a time machine and you had like 3 minutes to talk to yourself, let's say 5 years ago, what would you say during those 3 minutes? What would be the main things that you would tell yourself 5 years ago?
I mean, the biggest thing for us is don't get distracted. I would tell us to trust the process, because there have been so many times where the things that we were doing and we were hearing other people talk about, we were like, we're doing the thing, but we're not getting the results. Like, when is this payoff? When is this outcome? And we were so transfixed on like finding the deal or paying off the debt, which again was just like, it's like the outcome, it's not the process. And so we've now gotten to the point where we're like, we love the process more than the outcome. But back then, I think that was something that we really struggled with.
I think our biggest challenge was mindset. We didn't have like people in our lives doing what we wanted to do, and it felt everything felt terrifying and scary. We were so programmed to like, this is what you do. You went to school, you get a job, and you live that life. And it felt terrifying to consider an alternative. And I think getting around people that were doing it and getting around people that were smarter than us and more successful than us, that was the biggest catalyst to our success, because it normalized like life can be different. Life does not have to be the way you thought it would be. And I think that so often like we live in this box and then we autopilot ourselves and we numb ourselves out with all this just to get through the day, and we never really think like, how could it be different? So I think being around the difference, it just helps you get there faster. And I think like that is what I would tell myself. We probably could be even farther than we are now if we had recognized that sooner, but I'm grateful we recognized it now. And I think we'll just continue.
Yeah, like your environment, it can be like an anchor or a rocket ship. And I think for us, for so long, the people we surrounded ourselves with, like good, hardworking people, which was totally fine, but they weren't necessarily doing the things that we aspired to do. And so it started off by like podcasts and books. We were starting to like normalize thinking bigger. And then eventually like going to meetups and having mentors and joining masterminds. And all of a sudden the conversations were completely different than what the conversations in our, core friend group was. And then, not so surprisingly, the outcomes we started to achieve were much greater because we are now talking to a different group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, it's like, I tell people it's kind of like Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. If you want faster, get closer to the source. Mm-hmm. If you, and if you're too far away from it, then it's going to be really, really slow. Meaning watching podcasts, reading books is about as far away from the source as you can get. But it helps. At least you've got a trickle, right? You've got some internet, you've got some bandwidth. It's better than, being in the middle of the desert. But then when you want to get further, faster, you've got to get right next to people, which means you've got to have friends in your friend circle, people you go on date nights with, people you go to meetups with, people that you guys do content with. And now you're standing right next to the Wi-Fi and everything's way faster, less laggy, less issues. And all of a sudden you're like, what was the big difference? It's like, it was not me. The whole time, it wasn't even about me. It was about who can I get next to me to help me? Who else is one chapter ahead of me? Who's 5 chapters ahead of me, et cetera. So sounds like that's what you guys are also giving people as well, as you're saying, look, we can be that beacon or we can be that Wi-Fi hotspot for you. Get closer to us. We can show you guys how to speed up that bandwidth essentially. What is the name of your guys' coaching group?
Yeah, so right now, our community is called More Than Money, because the thing is what we're there to help people do is not just focus on how do I make more money, how do I buy more real estate. That's all well and good, but those are just bridges. They're really more, the community is focused on like, and then what? So yes, we want to help you buy real estate. We want to help you find creative ways to get funding and stuff like that, get better with budgeting. But what's your why? What's the thing? Because the thing is like, it's going to get really hard, as you know better than most. Like, it's going to get really challenging. You're going to need that thing or those values or that lifestyle that you're really focused on. That's going to help pull you through those tough times.
Often people come to us because they want to learn more about real estate, but real estate is the vehicle to get them to financial independence. And for everyone, it's, I want the power of choice. I want the power of choosing what I do with my time, where I go, who I do it with. And real estate is a very, very powerful vehicle to get there. So we speak to, beginners and people that are new investors. And again, it's like finding that mentor that's a few steps ahead of you.
Love that. Really, really cool. So what about your guys' next goal? What are the things mindset wise you guys are currently trying to break out of? Because even me, right? People look at me and they go, "You've made it." Like, no, I've got my own mindset stuff. I've got things I'm working on always, right? It's always, they say every new level has a new devil. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are the devils you guys are struggling with mindset wise? What's the next place you guys are trying to get to financially? What does that mean for you guys?
Mindset wise, we're in a unique situation right now. I can speak to that. I know you probably have all the numbers of what's next, but I think mindset, like, that's like a new barrier that we're experiencing, just because when you live so frugally, sometimes it feels foreign to like add, but it's reminding ourselves we can intentionally add, and we're taking a bet on ourselves, and our income levels can support that increase. So that's kind of just like personally a mindset shift that I think we're going through right now.
And then I would say, so our first couple deals, it was okay, like how do we work hard and save up enough money and get the down payments, and that helped us get started. And then it was last year, through just a lot of mindset and getting around different people who were doing different things. Honestly, like listening to a lot of your content, I was like, well, you can buy real estate with other people's money, which was like a totally foreign concept to us. Like when we first got started, we were like, well, no, we need our money and we need a bank.
That's for like rich people and people that are smarter than us, like using other people's money. Like we need to work hard and save our money, and then we can buy real estate.
And then so then it was like, again, mindset shifts, and then we got around other people who were buying deals using other people's money. So last year we bought a 3-unit, and we did it it was 97% hard money loan. We refinanced out of it into a 30-year loan, I think 4 months later. And then we had a property with very little money into it. And that was like, whoa, that happened. It was like an idea, made it real. So now this year we're actually closing next week on 4 more units, and we're doing 0%. We're using private money and seller financing, which that was like a completely new language. A year ago, I was like, that's like a late night infomercial stuff. That's not real. And here we are, it's real. So from a mindset, it's normalizing those types of conversations. And also it's like you figure out how to like lift the 5 and 10 pound dumbbells, and you're like, okay, like you're building that muscle. But I'm like, how can we apply the framework that we're building in terms of finding off market deals and using private lending and creative financing, but maybe not on the 2s and 3s and 4 units? What if it was like an 8 or a 10 or a 15 unit, right? And then just working up that dumbbell rack, if you will, because like the framework is pretty much there. So it's like we have a lot of friends right now. They're like, if there was one thing I wish I would have done sooner, is I wish I would have gone bigger faster, because the amount of energy and time to go into a 4 unit is not so different than an 8 to a 12 or 15, but what you can generate from it is radically different.
Yeah, I think the dumbbell rack analogy is always a really good analogy, because when people tell me I'm focusing on duplexes and fourplexes, what I hear them say is, I'm struggling with mindset.
Right.
That's what I hear. But you still have to go through it. Just because somebody told you, hey, just grab the 90-pound dumbbells, doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it. Right. And some of these people like Grant Cardone, who I've become good friends with in the last couple of years, he'll say, oh, I would have skipped all the single family and all the little stupid rinky dinky stuff, and I would have gone big multifamily way faster. I'm like, you wouldn't have been able to.
Right.
The main thing that those single family and smaller, fourplexes and 12plexes and stuff like that offer to you is actually not real estate, but it's the ability to re-brainwash yourself with a new language in order to get the ability to communicate on a higher level. And you guys are doing a good job of that. That's awesome. No. Okay. So you guys, I'm also very intrigued, because what are you doing with your time otherwise? Like people, I look at people that just chilling on a couch. Like you don't deserve time, because you don't value the fact that God gave you time to go do something with, right? So like, what are you doing with the time?
For sure. So that's the dance, right? So like because we've had a lot of friends and mentors who kind of went way out, and they built like 400 and 500 unit apartment complexes and were making gobs of money, but they also lacked infrastructure. And so they created these like Frankenstein businesses. Like we were just talking to someone the other day who built like 7 businesses. Like 3 or 4 years ago, they were like, I'm pretty good. I'm making more than I've ever thought. And then it was like, now what? And then people would come along and be like, hey, I have this great idea. Nothing could go wrong. And they're like, okay, like you're a great operator. Sure, I'll put X, Y, Z in that. That happened like 4 or 5 more times. and they were building like 7 bridges, and now all of a sudden they were neglecting the thing that actually was their base, and that started to erode. And they're like, well, but these things can't possibly go wrong. And then literally all these black swans started happening in those respective businesses, and the operators who were really excited, suddenly they started to show their lack of experience. And so now they're trying to unwind all of these really complex things. So I say all of that because like we are still many levels behind, I think, where we're going to quote unquote end up, as if, but it's not like a final destination or anything like that. But just even, even in the last 2 years, like what our schema around earning potential 2 years ago is night and day compared to what we're doing today. And so for us, it's not just about like, how do we, and this is why like the community we have is more than money, because it's not just like, how do we make more money, but it's also impact first. And then the byproduct of that, if you're helping more people, you're buying more deals, you're finding more partners, you're helping more money. There's more money that can come from that. But we also are very conscious too, like, yeah, we have a newborn here in 3 months, and that's going to radically change our time and focus and stuff like that. So we also don't want to build things today that we're then going to maybe have to kill off at some point.
So it's just being intentional. We, cut down everything and then intentionally are putting things back into our life as we go. And will we continue to increase our monthly expenses? Likely, yes. But
what does that look like for you, Ali? Because I don't care what Josh says about this. I care what Ali says about this. Like, what kind of life did you imagine when you're like, I'm getting married, we're both gonna have jobs? Do you imagine dying and being able to say, I only drove a Toyota Corolla? Because look, I drive a Toyota Prius, right? I totally get it. But I also am like, I'm not working hard so I can have more time. I could care less about time. I could. You and I are polar opposite. The reason I want more time is so I can do cool.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing from you guys is we want more time. And then I'm like, to do what?
Yeah.
Like what to do what?
Yeah.
Chill? Or
honestly,
like go travel first class, go visit an island you've never been in. You could take your kids to go see the world. Like, what are you doing with all this time, Ali?
Honestly, I think it's
because it ain't chilling at home. Because if you're chilling at home, we cannot be friends. Tell me, what the hell are you doing with all this time?
I honestly think it's a different mindset, because when I pictured what my life was, you get like the Center Hall Colonial and you drive an SUV and you have 2.5 kids. I didn't really think that far. And I don't know if
Colonial's a city name.
No.
Oh no, I just mean like a colonial home, right? Like
got it. Okay, got it. Sorry.
Like a $300,000-$400,000 house in our market, whatever. So that was kind of as far as I thought. I don't know if we program people in our society to dream about a great life. I don't think Pace Morby is the norm. I think that I was like, yeah, you get married and you have kids and then you work your job. Like I didn't think.
Oh no, that was me too. That was me too. Like, I was not. I grew up at 12 kids. My parents could barely afford the bills. I totally get it. But I had an engine inside of me that was so driven, like drove me. I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew I wanted more.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then when I got a little bit older and I started hanging out with other people, I was like, okay, now I see what more looks like. And I can kind of start picking and choosing what I like. Like I do like I have 700 employees. I like that. I like knowing that 700 people get a paycheck from me every 2 weeks. I enjoy that. I also enjoy, last night check this out. I go to an art gallery last night. Okay. This is something I'd never done before. I'm like, I want to experience things at a level and see the abundance that God has created and opportunities that I've never encountered before, because my parents gave me a mindset that was better than their parents gave them the mindset that was better than their parents. So I don't want to waste all the time that my pioneer parents or great sacrifice all this stuff just for me to have the current mindset I have. I'm not going to waste it by trying to save my life away. Right.
Right.
So last night I'm at this art gallery and they're like, hey, there's paintings that are selling for $35,000 tonight. But the auction starts in 15 minutes. So my wife and I are sitting there watching. Not one painting sold for $35,000. The lowest they sold for was $400,000.
Wow.
And there was 20 or 30 paintings. Some dude drops $570,000 on a painting the size of a TV. And I'm sitting here going, I want that mindset.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, how could you even dare to think that? Meanwhile, that person has an abundant mindset and has the ability. I want to be able to die and on my deathbed saying, I extracted everything out of life and I never looked at life as a money constraint. It was always a mindset constraint. So for you, Ali, because at the end of the day, Josh and I are very similar in the sense of like, we're men, we will attack a goal, but the goal that we're always trying to attack is taking care of our wife and our children. Yep. So who cares what Josh wants? Because he just wants what you want. What does Ali want?
Honestly, I don't care as much about, and like, we may just agree to disagree, but I don't care as much about the material things or.
Either do I.
No,
I care about the mindset associated with abundance. That's all I care about. Like, I'm wearing a Buc-ee's hoodie that cost me $19. I wear my own stuff. I don't wear a Rolex. I don't care about any of the material stuff. I care about the mindset that comes with abundant mindset. So my thought is like, what is abundance to you? Is it just abundant mindset of more time? And that time is now you holding your baby and sitting on the couch. Like, what does that more time look like? Like, paint a picture for me.
I think that it evolves as we evolve. And my version of abundance 2 years ago is different than my version of abundance now. And I think it will continue to change. But I think in this stage of my life, I feel like we were talking about this, like rich is a mindset, right? Like having that rich life, living that rich life. Right now, like Ali being able to quit her job, be home with her baby, and my husband's home too, and we're building a business together. And when we want to visit my aging grandparents in Florida for 3 weeks, we can do it, and we can go. And when we want to go to our friend's house and sleep over for 4 days just to see them because they live far away, we can do that too. So for me, it's just like the freedom of seeing the people that I love, because I do care about time in the sense that like our time on this planet is finite and I want to spend it with the people that matter the most to me. So to me, there's so much abundance in having that choice of time. And it may not be doing something wild like skydiving or something crazy, but I'm really, and this was always a rub because Josh was always like, what's the crazy thing that you want? And for me, it was kind of like, I want to spend it with the people that matter to me, because most people, their families get the crumbs. They work their 9 to 5 and their families get them early in the morning when they're tired and late at the night when they're burnt out and want to go to bed. And I want my family to get the best of me. So that's like phase 1. I feel like I'm living my rich life, that neither of us have to go into a job and we get to raise our daughter and be with the people that we love and travel when we want to. Like, that's wild. Will there be a new iteration of that? Of, yeah, we can travel to even cooler places and we can, all of those things, like upgrade our lifestyle in intentional ways, without a doubt. But I
love that answer. It's a great answer. Tell me, because somebody's going to listen to this and they're going to be like, but what the hell does Ali want? So like you say, travel to a cool place. What's a cool place on your list that you're like, I'd love to go here and spend $25,000 on first class tickets, a 5-star hotel, eat the best food, go buy a $5,000 dress at some amazing designer's place just to throw it away? What's the place that you would go? Is it Paris? Is it Africa? Is it London? Or do you not have any of those in your mind?
It's just funny because you're exposing me right now in a real way, because I think my brain doesn't even necessarily think of that experience yet. And that just shows like where my mind is currently. When you say that, like, I've always wanted to go to Italy to see where my family is from.
Oh, there you go.
So like that's a huge one. But yeah, maybe I'm not there. Like, are you thinking of that? Like, let's go on a $25,000 vacation and just like, because we can, like, is that in your mind?
We got married 2018 and literally we skipped our honeymoon. We didn't have a honeymoon. We closed on our first rental property 90 days later, and we put every dollar, and like we actually needed seller concessions too. Like, we put everything into it. you know, it was kind of like hoping that it would pay off. Well, a year later, like we paid off like $34,000 of debt. And so to celebrate that, but then also do like a belated honeymoon, we went to California for 2 weeks. And that was actually incredible because like I love hiking and being outdoors. So like that's one of my biggest values is actually like I take walks every single day. I'll just be like, you know what? I feel like going for a hike. Cold weather sucks, but during the warm weather, I just hike all the time now. And she loves the beach. So like we spent 2 weeks in California.
Like a mega road trip, and it was awesome.
Fucking awesome. Like we went to like if you've ever been to Yosemite National, like that was like such a life-changing experience.
So you guys flew out there, rented a car, kind of cruised around, saw everything.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like our vibe. So like, yeah, we were
guys, this is my vibe too. Like when COVID hit, we went and got an Airstream and we hit the road for 5 months. Like that's my version of wealth.
Without a doubt. So maybe I'm not like fully encapsulating that, but like that's it. Like I want to be able to pick up for 3 months and travel the country and explore
and not look at your bank account and go, can we fill it with gas?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like the biggest thing is, sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry.
We grew up in homes where money was always scarce.
Yep.
There was always stress about money, and you don't know when it's going to come again. And I think that shapes you so much as a human, and it is without a doubt reprogramming it. And for me as an adult now, I always want to live in a state of abundance, and I want to like give that to my child. Like life is abundant, money is abundant. You can build the life that you want, because I think like that's not the norm of how people view life. So that's what I want to model for her always.
So like it goes back to like that first pivotal conversation with us, like what's most important. Okay, let's lean into that and let's not have a job or money be like a constraint for us doing it abundantly. And so for instance, like so travel and time together are like our biggest things, and being with family. So now it's like now we have the means to not only travel with family, but we're also creating business opportunities now for family. We have family who are going to be working with us. We have family who's going to be private lenders. And so we're now showing them like, you have money in the bank. It's making you literally nothing, actually losing you because of inflation. Like, why don't you partner with us? And we're actually going to give you a monthly check that you literally don't have to do anything for. You've already done the work. You have the money. Let us make your money money. And then her grandparents are a bit older, but for years, they used to travel to Hawaii all the time. Like her grandmother had breast cancer, and luckily she survived and stuff like that. But that was like a fork in the road moment. They're like, we're going to do whatever we have to do to go to Hawaii every freaking year.
In their 40s, they started going like 2 months out of the year in the winter. And that
they started like a week, you know, and then they started building and building. And then eventually they lived in Hawaii for like 3 months out of the year.
There we go.
That's really it's like, cool. Their travel is a little bit limited, but we're going to figure out how to make a whole family trip back to Hawaii with them. Because every time you spend out with her grandfather will spend 2 hours telling you about every aspect of Hawaii. So like having the financial means to do that with confidence, like that's a huge value for us.
Ali, have you ever read the Love Language book?
I'm familiar with it. Like I know all the love languages, and we actually did the love language quiz when we first, started dating and were together.
Ali's love language has to be quality time.
Yeah. Quality time and acts of service, without a doubt.
Yep.
Yeah. Like I don't give about gifts. You don't need to buy me anything. I'm not going to buy you anything. We want experiences. Like if the thing is, we're at the phase in our life where if I want something, if you want something, we buy it. We don't really have to talk about it. Like I feel like my cup is full, but I care so little about anything like material, in the sense that I care most about like what cool stuff can we do and where can we go and what can we see. And I know I'm giving vague answers. Like I don't have an itinerary of the trip that I want to take, but it's just experiencing life that isn't dictated by someone else telling me what I need to do. I want to have that choice. And that to me is like the richest life, to have choice over what you do. If I want to sit on the couch one day, I have the choice to do it. If I want to fly to Hawaii the next, I have the choice. And that's like the most important thing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I think my whole thought process behind this conversation, or what I'm taking from this, is that your environment shapes who you are, and also ultimately like what you fight to get rid of also is like, you guys have trauma, not just from your childhood, but you guys have trauma from your current jobs.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, your motivation is, I want to have the opposite of what this job has provided for me. Now, final question, because I got another thing I got to jump onto, but Ali is like super fascinating to me. So I'm like, what is going through her mind right now that justifies keeping the job? Is it just to save for 3 more months? Is it like, I'm spending 3 months of my valuable life to save money? Or is there a greater motivation I'm missing here?
I don't know if it's just like an autopilot of like, in my mind, it makes sense to be at that job for the duration of my pregnancy. Literally, it's about the health benefits. It's about, I've been there.
It's about mindset is what it is.
I know it's mindset. Yeah. Like it's without a doubt the mindset of just like, yeah, I just want to maintain maybe because it's easy. I want to maintain my benefits until after I have my kid, because that's the easy, stable, secure. So again, exposing me in the sense that there still are those pieces of my former self that without a doubt like kind of rear their head out in a sense.
Well, that's something too. So like I have a small consulting business, and I've been like consistently just whittling it down. So right now we both work W-2 jobs or work like 2 days a week. And so some of it's just been like logistics, because like, so we're going through a ton of mortgage underwriting right now. And so the Fi Couple as a business we're over 2 years old. So now we help qualify for loans. Plus we have the rentals and stuff like that. So there's just that logistics nature of like quitting a job in the midst of underwriting.
Well, right. The W-2s were both necessary to help us with
help
that
qualify
because of
for
the age of the
our loans. And then, then there's just also like the logistics of like we had a friend who delivered last year, and her medical bills were like $250,000. But they had health insurance to help offset a lot of those. So,
but he's right. I could get health insurance through the marketplace. I could pay.
Yeah, I have I'm going through my own mindset stuff, right? There's always whatever level you go to, you're going to get another mindset thing that you realize, or I'm just at a point now where I'm purposely trying to expose my mindset stuff, so I know what I'm currently going through. Mm-hmm. And I'm always wondering what the person across the table from me is currently going through, not because I can necessarily help you, but because I'm just fascinated in you guys as human beings. I mean, you guys have made a tremendous evolution. Like, you're not the same people you were 4 years ago. You're not the same people you were 6 months ago. It's impressive. And I'm trying to like timestamp this so that in 2 years or 3 years, when we have a conversation, we can go, hey, remember back when you blah, 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 and you wouldn't quit your job because of such and such? I want to hear what you have to say about it 3 years from now. Because I'm interested in your story. I'm interested in your evolution. I think everybody else that's going to watch this in the future is going to be like, these guys are fascinating. This is so cool. And I think you're going to resonate with a lot of women out there, a lot of married couples. Women primarily go after stability, right? Men primarily go after, I need to bring stability, which requires instability. And so men are typically a little bit more risk tolerant. And so for you, I can see in you an amazing mother, an amazing home like wife, an amazing everything. Is like, I have a child coming into this world, and I need to make sure that the environment is safe and secure for that child. It is admirable and amazing. And I'm super fascinated in what you guys are going through. It's awesome.
I appreciate that. And I'll say, like, you're 1,000% right in terms of it's mindset. It's not money. I think we still have a little bit of that imposter syndrome happening right now. Is like, we are high income people, but we don't identify as such. We still identify as our former selves.
Yeah. Like, to be totally vulnerable, like, I think that it really comes down to fear for me. And Josh and I talk about this a lot, because especially like, I'm carrying a human. We're now responsible for another person. It's not just like us two blundering through life. Like, we have a life now. And I think for so long it was like, if you go to a W-2, whether you put minimum output or maximum output, you still get a paycheck. And even if it was a modest paycheck, there's a security in that. And I think that's why people don't take the risk to invest or be an entrepreneur, because the idea of instability is scary. And I feel like we overcame that mindset by quitting our jobs and pursuing all of this, but there's still that piece of like, I need to kind of just bring my level to where we are. And it's like an adjustment. It's now, like allowing myself to say, and Josh says this all the time, do you believe in us? Do you believe that we have the ability to get better and improve? Yeah, like we have a 100% success rate. Everything we've pursued, like have we made mistakes? Yeah, but like we're getting better and stronger every day. But I think,
well, I'll tell you this. I believe in you guys. You guys are amazing. I've got another thing I've got to get on. This was a great conversation. You guys are unbelievable. How can people find you? Like, what's the best place to go?
Instagram for now. The FI couple, FI, it stands for financial independence and not Florida. You would be shocked how many people think we're the Florida couple. Wow. But the FI couple on pretty much any social media. You can email us, info@theficouple. And maybe YouTube soon, Pace. We'll see. Time will tell.
Amazing.